Hello and welcome to the Red Room. Our guest today is Liam Thompson, the author of Sanctions, Sanctions, this book here. Thank you for coming, Liam. How are you?
Glad to be here. Wonderful to speak to you again.
It's glad to have you here. So last time our first interview was a written interview, so it's different like this.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was the second interview I did for the blog, I think, a while ago. 6 months, 7 months, I'm not sure. But well, the Sanctions was already a game that had been launched maybe what, 2 years ago, maybe.
Yeah, it would be about 2 years ago. Yeah. So when that was launched, I then started working straight away on the expansion book, and that's taken another year. So yeah, it would have been 2 years.
I think I've heard about that on Joe Coombs' Facebook group when you launched the game. I think it was I think it was.
Yeah. That's the expansion, yeah.
Oh, we still don't have that one in a paper format. I bought it in PDF and I forgot. I'll have to buy it in next time.
I'm so poor.
Next time I buy something on Lulu, I have to because I always like to have the paper format.
Yeah, I was looking at Sanctions, and I when you had it on top of the table, and I was like, but that's not the other cover, because I just lately I've been seeing the expansion cover. I thought it was strange, but I didn't make the connection.
Yeah, all of the Sanctions books are going to have the sort of hazard warning stripes, and they'll be of a theme, just so that you can, sort of grab it.
Okay, so let's start by talking about the setting and the rules and all that for people who don't know what Sanctions is.
Well, Sanctions is a biopunk, body horror, science fiction, tech noir, not very much cyberpunk in there because it never worked. Horror game. The setting is, some people have said it's post-apocalyptic, but it's not. It's a recovering Earth after a very limited war called the Terminal War, which was all about, not terminal as in the end, but all to do with the gas terminals, the oil terminals. The fuel was running out, so it was the last-ditch attempt for the superpowers to win, and nobody won. The refugees from all over the countries, like Russia, and certainly in Europe and in America, rushed towards the major cities for help. And the sick, the dying were all turned away, and the people were being mutated, and they started to put up walls. You're starting to see where the influences are coming from, a bit like Judge Dredd, things like that. Sanctions refers to the fact that the military and the police just couldn't cope. So the powers that be, the ones that were left over, changed the law and said that temporary staffing agents, when you were younger, when you were a student and you had to have a job, and you went to these temporary staffing agencies, and they said, "Oh, right, Sylvia, Miguel, you're going to go and work in this warehouse." And so they throw you into all these different jobs, rubbish jobs. And some of them, I don't know if it was the same for you guys in Portugal, but here in the UK, they would say, "Oh, you've got to buy your own boots. You've got to buy your own hard hat. You've got to buy your own vest." Well, the same happens in 2086. If you choose to become employed and you want to become a sanction, that's great. You are an armed, troubleshooting, independent detective plumber, electrician, IT technician, anything, but you've got to buy your own equipment. The companies are not going to pay for it because they don't care. Because in a city like, say, Lisbon, the population has increased 20-fold at that point. They have people coming out of their ears. They don't care. So, you know, who cares if you're gone one day? And that's essentially what the game is about. It's about people doing what they have to do. But the technology has changed. As I said earlier, there's not much cybernetics in there because it never worked. People didn't like the idea of sticking bits of machinery into themselves. So very much like Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, the idea was biological. Grow things, make creatures that would work inside you. Very much like, as opposed to Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, where they were robots, the concept is more like Blade Runner, where robots and creatures are biological. So are computers, so is a lot of technology. Things like street lights are no longer just like neon lights. They may just be like a giant glow bug on a stick somewhere out there in the street. Also, there's an added threat within these walled cities, which is the fog. When the war occurred back in 2012, I think I remember writing here, the climate changes drastically, massively. And instead of like, you know, huge deserts and things like that, there is now a global fog which carries toxins and poisons across most of the Northern Hemisphere. It does cover the Middle East and the Southern Hemisphere as well, but not as bad. So if you ever wanted to go on holiday in the world of Sanctions, that's where you go.
Do people go on holiday on the world of Sanctions? That is the question.
The rich ones?
Yes. That is coming up. That is something that's going to be coming up in the next book. There is going to be a holiday resort. Because Sanctions has been written so that it's not just one city or one plex, as we call it. The horror is more based around your city. So if you wanted to run a game, Lisbon 2086, you know, with all of this extra pressure and the fog, biological creatures and twisted serial killers jumping out from alleyways, that adds to the horror.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and each city will have its own flavor.
That's an idea that
that's what you're thinking.
Absolutely. I mean, the games that I've run and some of the fiction that you see in the book is based around my hometown of Northampton in the UK, and it's, you know, not a great town, but you know,
in the future or right now?
Yeah, it's kind of a lot of the world and the science fiction setting is very much like they said in Max Headroom, 20 minutes into the future, and that's the way I wrote it. Just, you know, instead of delivery robots, you've got these, you know, giant tardigrades with like satchels on them, you know, delivering for Amazon and things like that, just lumbering down the street.
About the game's title, I found it a bit strange because in this context, the word sanctions and sanctioned, I don't think I'd ever heard it. Is that something common in the UK, to be sanctioned to do something, or what?
To be sanctioned can imply two things. To have sanctions put against you is to, you know, essentially forbid you from doing something. Also, it can mean that you are allowed to do something.
Mm-hmm.
So the term is a sanctioned operative is an operative who is sanctioned to, like it says on the ID cards, enter, carry firearms, arrest, terminate, destroy. They're allowed to do these sort of things. And it was very much taken from the... I did a lot of research many years ago into bounty hunters of the US. And it actually, the term sanctions came from one line of a court case, which is actually still used as a precedent for bounty hunters to do what they do in America now, which is that they are sanctioned to enter any property where they think the person is. Mm-hmm. So if you're hiding somebody, tough, they can come in. They actually have, in many respects, more license to work than many police officers, where a police officer would need a warrant. Bounty hunters can do that. And so that's the kind of thing that I wanted to imply with these freelance operatives. But they also have problems.
Yeah, they need to buy their own gear.
They buy their own gear. They're also civilians.
And it's a dangerous job, right?
Oh,
in a dangerous world, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if you look at the police, fire brigade, air force, army of any country, they have backup from themselves. Whereas if you're a private contractor, an independent contractor, and you get in trouble, you can't just ring the police or you can't just ring somebody else because they say, hey, you don't work for us. Who cares? Your company should be helping you. But what happens if the company you work for aren't that great? And that's kind of the sort of thing I wanted to imply.
That thing about buying your own equipment, you mentioned something before that it was something from your own background. You had some job and they told you to buy your own equipment, right?
Oh yeah, more than once. High visibility jackets, steel boots and things like that. I had to buy all of that. So before I was even earning money, I was spending money, and it was like, hang on, it's like catch-22. You know, it's like I don't have to spend the money. I can just keep this money, and then
those type of things are expensive, right? That type of gear is expensive. The closest I had was I had a shitty job at a perfume shop during the holidays. Doing gift wraps, and I had to. They gave me a shirt with the store logo, but I had to use black pants, and at the time I didn't have any black pants, so I had to go and you had to put on makeup, so I had to buy makeup. But after two days, they told me to go away. Luckily, because I hated it.
Yeah, I've had jobs like that, and you know you're on your hands and knees, you know, looking for things, and you look at your thing. These are my own clothes here. I'm ruining my own clothes, and you know, like I've said to Miguel before, Sanctions is essentially 30 years worth of work for me because it's all come from various different parts, and I'll go, put that in there. Yes, put that in there.
The timeline of the game starts long before the present and the future, of course.
Yeah.
In 1921.
1921.
German scientists using stolen data and technology from Tesla create the Tartarus interface. Okay, so let's talk about the past.
When I was, you know, going full steam ahead with writing it, I just started it as 2086 and just went, boom, there it is, and there's your technology, and that's that. And I thought, well, why? So I mean, I wanted to put in a reasoning behind it, and so to have like an alternate history just seemed to make sense. You know, the idea that, you know, that the Germans were playing around with these alternate forms of technology. I believe they stole Tesla's ideas and started integrating and cybernetically enhancing people. And the Allies, well, they said, no, let's create Superman, essentially. And so they did that. They created the biological side of things.
Yeah, it makes sense to start in the past.
Yeah.
So the technology doesn't appear just by itself.
That's right.
Sometimes, yeah, it's a discovery right now.
Yeah.
So that's a good.
So, in spite of not being cyberpunk, there's a lot of gangs here described. How do the gangs fit in this story?
Well, how many times have the gangs were always a threat, as well as all of the artificial creatures and the horrors and things like that. I don't know what it's like in Lisbon when you're walking the streets at night, but street gangs and youth culture and things like that. That's what I wanted to imply.
Oh.
Yeah, the gangs. There's the blanks, which are very, very unusual. That they like to hide their faces. They were based on sort of the anonymous group, who like to hide their faces. But these guys go one step beyond, and they start off from when they're indoctrinated as maybe as a young child, trying to find themselves a place in society. So they join the blanks. They'll start off with a Halloween mask, and through various crimes and everything, they'll work up to a full skin graft of, say, like almost like a Leatherface from Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Who else have we got? In the expansion we have the Mafiana, who are the Lady Mafia, which is the cross-dressing mafia. So all the lady members of the mafia dress like the male gangsters from the 1920s. That gang with an organized crime was based off of a musical idea, like a musical subculture. You have the goths, which is an ultra-violent gang that way. The Tea Freaks, who are one of my favorites, because one of the many inspirations for the game and the setting was Shinya Tsukamoto's Tetsuo series. And they are essentially metal and cybernetics fetishists, even though in their minds they know that it's never going to work. They're these guys taking rusty pieces of metal and just sticking it into themselves, very much like what was that short-lived show, Firefly, the Reavers.
Yeah.
These guys are they metal fetishists, where one piercing leads to another before you know it, they're got huge lumps of metal sticking out of them. There's loads of gangs in there. There's Yaksam, the people who want desperately to be either a samurai or yakuza, and so they've mixed it all up. So they have kimono and Japanese inspired, like Hawaiian shirts with tuxedos and things like that. But essentially it's everybody wanting to find a place in the world, and unfortunately, very much like today, the kids do. And there's always somebody wanting to abuse that. And that's the reason why you have these, youth gangs who are being run by organized criminals.
What about the technology level? What is used, and are there flying cars and all that things?
There are. Because of the lack of, at the end of the Terminal War, there was no oil. There was no. People were relying on electricity, solar power, wind power, things like that. But then the fog started rolling in, and the corporations, unlike the big evil, well, they are big evil corporations. They're huge mega corporations like Hexcore and things like that. The fuel corporations that were left over conglomerated together, and they finally beat cold fusion. So they were extracting electricity and energy from the water. And if there's global fog, there's global energy. So there are vehicles and most electrical items, they're powered by these little fusion packs and, you know, like a little nuclear generator that runs off of fog. Guns and technology of that sort of thing, the arms and armament, because of fog, laser weapons don't work. So it's always good old-fashioned high-speed metal coming out the end of a very big gun, or very small gun, depending on what sort of job you're doing. Guns are 3D, it can be 3D printed, a lot of ceramic. Materials have improved, so you have things like Durasteel, which is, you know, very impressive. It's, you know, can't be broken. And but I know where Miguel's going. He wants to know about the biological stuff.
Yeah, also.
Yeah,
of course.
Some technology, some computers, wristwatches, cell phones, they look normal. But inside there are biochips, little tiny creatures that basically are a few brain cells or octopedal cerebral tissue that runs everything. But fashions change, very much like the iPod. Everybody wants an iPod. Everybody wants an iPad. Everybody wants something by Apple. So I came up with the company Mango. Mm-hmm. Just so that I don't get the hell sued out of me by certain companies. But they came up with the idea of a completely organic computer. So very much like in Existence, you have this little breathing, not oozing, well, only if it gets hurt, but this little fleshy thing that you can have plugged into you. Via,
is it supposed to be as disgusting as in Existence? It was really, yeah.
How can you say they were cute, man? They were cute. Electric
they looked a little bit like aliens, you know, the face huggers. So
I thought they looked, the actual game pods, if you looked at the alien ship in Alien, that sort of horseshoe shape, they reminded me of that more than anything else. But the diseased one, yeah, that was particularly.
Yeah.
But that can happen. That can happen in the game. If somebody launches a virus against you in Sanctions, they really are. They really are. You know, you could be, you know, surfing the global neural web in Sanctions, and the next day you've got a cough and a cold, sneezes, you know. Bit disturbing to think about, especially in this pandemic, but you know, it's these things can happen. It's how you attack somebody is using these things, using bioports, very similar to Existence. I mean, that film just blew me away when I first saw it. I was already thinking about ideas for Sanctions, and it had gone through various development stages. But when I saw that, I just went, that's it. That is the way to go.
That movie was in the 90s, right?
Yeah.
Mid-90s, I think.
1999, I think.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Good old Cronenberg. Gotta love him.
So at the time you were already planning something, probably not Sanctions, but something.
It hadn't got a name. they were referred to as sanctioned officers or sanctioned agents. It gone through several different iterations, and like I said in a couple of other interviews, you'd explain the rule system to somebody, and they go, "Oh, that's like Dungeons and Dragons," and you go, "Oh." Start again, because I wanted something original. I had 3 versions that were just different versions of Tunnels and Trolls. I had another version, because I have this problem, is like, if I love a system, I'll start writing, my brain doesn't tell me that I'm actually writing that system. I'm changing the name of it. So, instead of strength, I might use might, or, dexterity, I might be using reflex. But my brain doesn't tell me that. And so somebody will read it and go, did you know? Oh. So, yeah, it took a long time. And especially when you see more and more ideas, especially because I like things like a lot of the science and CNN. I watch a lot of that sort of thing, and so I'm kind of hearing things or seeing things on TV, and I've always got a notebook by me going, right, okay, that's going in there, that's going in there, that's going in there. So before you know it, I've got like 12 different iterations of sanctions, and I had to choose, get it down to one.
What's the name of the game system? I forgot.
The game system's called Core 6. It was one that I played around with, and it is essentially a dice pool system. Characters are created via allocating points to various different statistics and to skills, and each point represents a D6. Successes are based on a 5 or a 6, plus or minus any modifiers, and you just roll dice equal to that amount, versus what's called a task level.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So really, you think the hardest part was to create the system?
Really was.
I think that's always the hardest part, because if you want to create something completely new but not too far-fetched, it's not that easy, right?
Excuse me. Can we pause recording for a moment?
Yep. Yes.
Honey, I don't know. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. The system is always the hardest part. It always is. But once you've got that cracked, it's easy. It's easy. You just start. All you've got to do then is just put everything together. What I'm doing now is I now have 2 systems that I'm going to be using from now on. One is Core 6, and the other one is called System 6, which is basically a 2d6 system. If you play Traveller, or you played Cepheus, or any of those sort of games, it's that 2d6 plus your stat plus any modifiers over a number. And I'm using that system as a way to streamline things. Whilst Core 6 is so simple, with System 6, all you've got to do is have 2 dice. And and I don't know who you are, but if you haven't got 2 D6s in your house, there's something wrong with you. It's like,
we have plenty.
Yeah,
we have more than we need. Not just D6.
Yes.
Well, a while ago we were playing Modifius games, and they have those special dice for everything. D20s and D6s and well, okay.
And somebody likes shiny things.
Yeah, I didn't like dice before. I didn't care about that. I had just a small box, but then it grew.
It does. It's luckily it's. I remember when I was getting into role playing when I was a young teenager, and you discover miniatures. And before you know it, starts with one. I suppose it's the same for any hobbyist who's got a fascination like that. I know people who are into Lego, and before you know it, they've got this huge mountain of Lego. And it was the same with me. I bought my first Citadel goblin when they were still in bags. Then you're far too young, guys. So they were in bags originally, little zippy bags. I bought my first goblin for about 20p, so about 20 cents or something like that. And before you know it, I had shelves of them, and it became a nightmare. And it's the same with dice.
Did you paint them, or just collect them?
I painted them. I tried to paint them, and I was never very good at painting.
Yeah, neither am I.
It looked like Picasso.
I never tried painting miniatures, but I tried to paint those small planes and those things.
Oh yeah.
It's the same.
Models.
Well, it's a little bigger, but it's no.
Yeah.
I gave it up. I couldn't, and actually I could draw at the time. I could do nothing professional, of course, but it's different. Painting, it's not the same.
I can't paint miniatures very well. I can't. My art is. Some people have said it's okay, and I was like, there are people out there doing art for their games that are just incredible. Me, it's like, I can play around with photos and stock art and things like that, and put filters on it and stuff like that. But don't get me to draw a face. I can't. It looks like something like the Elephant Man meets King Kong or something like that. Horrifying stuff. But I like making things. I like making models and just bits and pieces. With Sanctions, I've been.
You did the layout, right? Well, I know.
Oh yeah. The layout, everything in Sanctions, apart from I did the covers. But I handed them over to somebody because they knew how to use Scribus and GIMP and things like that in order to get the right sizes. Because as you know, Lulu asked for bleeding and edge size. Oh.
I think and drive-through has the same requirements.
Except drive-through is even worse. I mean, what they ask you to do there, I was just like. That's the reason why I went to Lulu in the end. It was so much easier, It's like I have too many headaches writing anyway. So don't give me any more headaches when I'm trying to use your service. Make it easier for me, and it works out well. But yeah, everything from the writing, layout, a lot of the art.
Did you buy any of them?
I have had some very good friends and volunteers actually donate bits of art and give ideas, and they always get credit in the books because my budget is not great. But then again, I refuse to use Kickstarter. So
that's I haven't used Kickstarter also, so so you're talking about art.
Yeah. Because it's science fiction, and a lot of my work is either science fiction or modern day, I like to use photos or edit photos or one of the photos, or at least two of the photos in the original Sanctions where they're showing the example characters. One of them is me in costume, and the other one is actually my granddaughter. I
didn't recognize you, so
I know I'm so much more.
You were well disguised. So where did you get the photos? Stock photos, right?
a lot of them are stock photos. I use a lot of things like Google image search, etc., etc. But you've got to be so careful because of the copyright. Sometimes just yeah, you have to be, especially when it comes to things like movies and things like that. If it's a photo from a movie, you've got to be so careful. It has to be in public domain and things like that.
Okay, so what have you added to the world of Sanctions in your, if you want to show it,
in the expansion?
The expansion cover. I don't have that one.
Which one? Ops and admin.
Yes.
Yeah, which is kind of
that's the one that's available.
Ops and admin is, as it says, this handbook is for you operators wanting more data, information, and details on new equipment available, covering your city, threats, going solo, the hard truth, transport, interviews, and field reports. It's laid out essentially like an industry magazine. When you get into a job and all of a sudden you see these magazines as like Window Cleaner Monthly or something like that. You think, what is there a journal? There are people writing these magazines, dedicated to, it's like Till Worker Quarterly or something like that, or like Grocery World and things like that. All of these magazines, like industry magazines.
Yeah.
And I thought, it's like very much like I wanted to do an expansion book that covered both the operators and the admin staff. So essentially mixing both a player expansion and a GM book at the same time. Because I hate that. You buy a game, a certain game by TSR and Wizards of the Coast, when they bring out a player book, a monster manual, and a DM's guide, just for you to play it properly. So what I'm doing is I'm putting both GM extra rules into each book as well as player stuff. But I digress. The idea for the expansion book was actually taken from a photo I once saw of it's really weird. It was a photo taken in Rhodesia in the 1970s, and it was a member of the Rhodesia. A contractor, let's call him a contractor. They weren't mercenaries, they were working for the government. Okay. And he was sat there in his combat gear, had a rifle next to him, and he was reading Guns and Ammo. And I just thought, that's what would happen. You got to keep, if you're one of these people, if you're in this job, you want to keep abreast of new technology, new things. You want to learn more. It's the same as, guys who work in IT and they buy computer magazines all the time so they can keep up to date with it. And it's the same sort of thing.
Well, what will be the next source book? I think you were working on that one now.
Yeah. At the moment, it's not very original. It's going to be Ops and Admin issue 2. So that one, let me have a look at my notes. Give me 1 second. I can tell you what is probably going to be in it. There's going to be lots more of the little short stories that you see. And what I've started to do is with these short stories, adding a little grey box that can actually turn it into an adventure. So you can you can read the story and then it can be run as a game. Let's see, there's going to be articles on various different types of music, shopping malls, an article called Thriller Pill, which is going to be quite disturbing. In Ops and Admin, there's a section all about urban legends. And one of the urban legends is a drug called Kafka. So never go to a party in 2086 and take a pill just because somebody says it's all right. You know, very much like, you know, somebody playing with somebody's drink in a bar nowadays. You know, somebody offers you a pill, don't take it, because the next morning could be tentacles growing out your head and things like that. You know, your lungs are growing outside of your chest instead of inside. But thriller pill is the concept of chemically induced interactive memories. So you could take a memory, put it into a tablet, and somebody could buy it as a drug. And it's also interactive. But then it brings about a question, which is, what part of that high is real?
Yeah.
And also, what happens when the black market are selling sort of black label memories?
So that's like the Strange Days movie, but in pills, right?
Similar.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
similar.
Those
Yeah,
were
that one isn't actually interactive. It's just
I mean,
you watched that, but you couldn't interact
yeah,
with it.
that's like a ride along. This will be fully interactive, so it becomes to the point where your brain becomes messed up, and you can start. You can have like pink label ones, which are like quite innocent, but they can still, if you give them to the wrong sort of person, it's bad news. It's like giving somebody who's mentally unstable LSD. Probably not the best thing to do. If you were to give somebody who's unstable an interactive memory via a tablet, they may zone out and start thinking, hang on, that memory is mine.
Yes.
But if you have a black label memory, with somebody murdering somebody or doing something awful, and you're interacting with that memory, that's where real problems can happen.
By the way, I don't think it was mentioned before. Well, you mentioned the name, but not how it works. The neuro web, how does it work?
The neuroweb very much is like cyberspace, but biological. Instead of like these lovely sort of 1980s Atari style wireframe graphics, though, when you have your little pod, your computer, this thing, whatever you call it, you know, you can put in a theme. So say you wanted a Western theme. When you interact with it, websites and users inside that web would become a Western town. So say you wanted to navigate the web in the neural web, you would see a dusty street with a saloon on one side, and that's a chat room. And you can buy things from the shop down the road, and you can interact with people as users. And you can do it using various different themes. You can have the 1980s, what we call the retrotron, and you can interact with it in the very sort of Johnny Mnemonic sort of cyberspace way. But you can also have the 1920s black and white detective movie scene, things like that. And combat would be with, say, another hacker would be done very abstractly. If we were to do a Western game, it would be done where you are fighting, you know, the Indians with your six guns and things like that. Or in Sanctions, there's a small story called A Taste of Purple, which is the set in the 1920s, 1930s, black and white detective theme. Everything's in black and white. The hacker is a lady in a very elegant little black dress. She's walking around. She suddenly realizes that somebody's there to attack her. And so she asks him for a light of a cigarette. She blows out the cigarette, blows out the smoke, and it's purple. And that's an attack virus, and he de-reses.
So there are no hacking rules, special rules for hacking?
Nope. No, it is done exactly as I said before. It's you do have rules for hacking, but it's all based on the same thing.
Okay, no mini games.
No metagames. It's all
good.
done the same way. You have a task level. If your hacker is going against a static thing, then you would just have a task level and say, right, you need 3 successes. And you have to say to yourself, well, what's my speed of my computer? What's my attack strength? And you roll the dice equivalent. If you're going up against a person, it then becomes very personal, and you use your stats versus their stats, and it becomes just like the same as a gunfight.
But there are
that's the one problem I had with both. I'm not going to use the 2 big ones. All of the other Cyberpunk games, I nearly said it. All of the other games, it is very much a small meta micro game, and the hackers can just seem to just sit there going, "What am I doing? What am I doing? What am I doing?" With this, it's done at the same speed.
I was asking about sanity rules, sanity and fear rules. Those exist, right?
There is currently there exists humanity, which starts at 100%. It decreases the more what we call amps, which is biological implants you have. The more trauma you go through, the more morally ambiguous things you do, and the more horror you see, it drops and drops and drops. In order to minimize the rules in Sanctions initially, what I did was I said, when it drops to a certain amount, you can acquire phobias. If it drops further than that, you may start going down the route of becoming slightly unstable. And then finally, you become feral, which means that your license gets taken away and you are the hunter now becomes the hunted. So before you know it, your fellow members of your Sanctions team, they're coming after you. But there are plans in the future. In about another year or two's time, I am doing a deluxe version of Sanctions using the System 6. And there's going to be a lot more things to do with not mental illness. I don't want to call it mental illness. Various things that can happen to you, like PTSD, and how it can affect you. Various different issues like that.
So you already have other things planned for the future?
Oh yeah, yeah. It keeps evolving. Keeps evolving. We evolve as biological creatures, and so is this. It's yeah. I did have an idea about doing something similar to what Mike Pondsmith did, of having like a story arc. And I don't really want to go down that route, but there will, as you've seen from the book so far, the small adverts and things like that, there will be advances in technology and new things, which will make it, better for the players or maybe bad for the players. I don't know. There is a new product which is, or new series of biological products coming out in the next book, which should make certain people happy. Certain people who like the cyberpunk or the near future games to have a fantasy edge. We know the game by FASA. It won't be magic, but it won't be science either. It'll be grown science, which will which is a less than subtle nod to scanners. So there'll be little sort of augmentations that you can buy that may give you ESP, but then again, they may not. It might do something completely horrible, but I can't guarantee that.
Okay. Besides Sanctions, do you have plans for something else? Well, I know you have, but
yeah, I have a series of very small games. I mean, Sanctions is only about 130, 140 pages long. I have this idea for a series of small pocket books. You know, smaller than a novel, about 40 pages in length, and they're just going to be like very small, condensed games that you can just pick up and play. So it's going to be very much in the same vein as the old fighting fantasy books, but not as many pages. They're not solo games, but they'll have like 3 pages of background, say 10 pages of rules, and the rest will be just adventures. I know that there's going to be a Western game. There's going to be a space game. I'll try and be unique.
Popular genre.
But you know, I do. You know, there are the good old favourites. I want to throw in as a sort of. Whilst I don't like doing fantasy games, there will be a Conan style barbarian game in there. There's one that I'm calling it Il Mundo Bizarro, which is going to be sort of based on the Italian and European low budget movies of the 80s. So it's going to be big hair, spiky cars and things like that, or similar to Neon Lords, but not.
Yeah.
More like the movies.
And there are more projects, right? Besides the small books.
Small books, there's that.
Or have you put some of those down? I seem to remember something else. I'm not sure.
Yeah,
there was something else.
I'm doing I want to do a book of battle boards for Sanctions as well, which will be like a book of just gridded battle maps, and also kind of a board game. I want to do it like I don't like doing skirmish games with like rulers and things like that. I like little squares. I'm just old school. I never could afford Hero Quest when I was a kid, so well, I can't afford it now. You know, it's like £99 or something. It's ridiculous. But I have a laminator. I have a printer, so I'm going to make my own. But I'm going to make it sort of very grungy, sci-fi, European. Cyberpunk and Sanctions.
Sanctions, yeah, I was gonna ask that. It'll be a Sanctions game.
Oh yeah. And because of the way the rules work, it'll just work. Just print it off. There it is.
So the influences and the inspirations for Sanctions, you mentioned some of them before, but let's talk a little bit more about that. Of course, yeah, Cronenberg. Sure. Every Cronenberg movie, I know that.
Let's see.
Well, Existence is the obvious one.
Existence, Shivers, Rabies, Brood, Dead Ringers. Yeah, pretty much all of them.
All of them, yeah. Scanners. Yeah.
Of course,
perhaps not the more recent ones.
Even ones where David Cronenberg was actually in the film, like Decker in Nightbreed. He was just brilliant.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. I mean, apart from a couple of the other characters within Nightbreed, you watch the film for him. He could have had that as a movie. Decker, the movie, would have just been. Let's see, what else is there? Network, a great movie from the 1970s. I don't know if you've ever seen it. All about.
I'm not sure. The name is not.
I don't think so.
It's not ringing a bell, but I'm going to check that.
Fantastic film. All about the exploitation, corporate exploitation of people. It's all about a TV network that exploits the mental breakdown of one of its lead anchormen. And you will know the film from the one quote, "I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore."
I think I've seen it, but I can't remember the story, but I think I saw it.
Yeah, that is fantastic.
It's Faye Dunaway, right? And Robert Duval and someone else.
That's right. Yeah. And ultimately, the film ends where I'm going to ruin it for everyone now. They assassinate him on live TV. And that's the way it's going. That's, sort of stuff that influenced, sanctions. It's like how many, violence. I've got no problem with violence on TV and things like that, but it's becoming desensitized. The world is becoming desensitized to these things. Let's see, other films. Shinya Tsukamoto. We've got Tetsuo 1, 2, and 3. Dread, the new one, not the old one.
You didn't like the old one? We saw it again recently.
I do. I love it.
We watched it again recently, and we liked it.
Everybody's going to hate me for saying it. I liked Stallone's version because it was a comic book. I like these films where they tried and they clearly lost their way. They really did lose their way. But if you see it as being an action movie, a science fiction action movie, that's all it is. Admittedly, I had Rob Schneider in it. I mean,
that's the problem.
That's the problem.
I think jury in there, though.
Yeah, and also part of the problem is that then Stallone did Demolition Man. And it's basically the same.
I knew you were going to say that. Yeah. And Rob bloody Schneider's in that one as well. I can tell you what to do with your 3 seashells. But if you look at the imagery, Demolition Man not so much because let's face it. I mean, they used it was a bit like Logan's Run where they used existing features because it was so near to the present. But Dread, I mean, when they did the cityscapes and things like that, and the vehicles and things like that, I've actually been in one of those, by the way.
Oh, cool.
The yellow Range Rover taxis.
Mm-hmm.
I've been in one, and they're a mess. They've got a shell on the inside. There's nothing in them. You kind of just. But other films like. I'm very video sort of orientated. I'm very visual. So Rutger Hauer in, of course, Blade Runner and Split Second. Split Second, just brilliant.
Yeah, we saw that one not that long ago. It was the first time I saw it, and I really liked it.
I hadn't watched it in I don't know, 15 years, 20. I don't know.
Yeah,
a lot of time.
It was on. There's a version of it somewhere on YouTube, and it's a slightly different edit. I can't remember. There's a couple of extra minutes in it. Then you go, didn't see that before. Another one, Hardware. Although that was more robotics, etc., but that was a heavy influence as well.
Yeah, I don't think I know that one.
Hardware.
Let me check.
Hardware. If you type in Hardware English movie version onto YouTube, you'll find it.
Yeah, I think.
It has Dylan McDermott.
Yeah.
And
I think I was looking for this recently, probably because you mentioned it.
And it's got Lemmy in there. He is God. Iggy Pop is in there.
Oh yeah. I know. Yeah. I didn't watch it, but I was looking for it a while ago. Probably before I was saying you mentioned it, and I was looking for it.
Yeah, it is on YouTube. apart from all of those, we do have things like Kafka, a good healthy amount of William Burroughs is involved in my influences. Let's see, and I have to give a generous nod to people like Nightfall Games, because when they came out with Slay Industries in the late 80s, that blew me away. Everything up until that point was kind of like very sterile and you know, and they threw, you know, Scottish grunge culture into this alien world, and I was like, wow, that's genius, absolutely genius. Oh, and I think I mentioned it earlier, Max Headroom, because we keep mentioning Cyberpunk, and obviously my game, I'm trying to avoid that. But I don't know if anybody else found it, that Cyberpunk 2020 was very sort of Japanese meets American, shiny. Is it fair to say that it's shiny sort of cyberpunk?
I think that was the idea at the time, right?
Yes, yeah. 90s.
Of what the future is going to be. In the 90s,
yeah,
we all
early
thought
90s.
Yes.
Yeah. Whereas if you were in the UK in the 1980s and 1990s, it wasn't that great. It wasn't that shiny. The future was never going to be that wonderful. You know, like
yeah, that is the punk.
Was greasy, oily. Everybody was going on strike.
Well, and
going hungry.
Gibson's Cyberpunk isn't supposed to be fun and games, but it's shinier. There's neon lights and people dress in style and all that.
Yeah. Whereas
when garbage is stylish.
Yeah, when they came out with Max Headroom, it was definitely not. You know, half the nice shiny neon lights, somebody had smashed them and stolen them. And if you look in the control rooms, all the computers had an ashtray on them, and there was like stuff dripping down them. The computer genius was like hacking the system in his bathtub with a frog phone and things like that. And you know, people were selling body parts, you know, to Nightingale's body banks and things like that. And at the time, I think it was about 1984, 1985 when that came out. So I was about 11 or 12, and I watched that, and I was like, wow. And it was about the same time that I actually did get a copy of Neuromancer, and I was reading Neuromancer and watching that, and I was like, yeah, throw that away. I want to watch that again and again and again.
I don't think I probably watched a bit of Max Headroom, but I didn't pay much attention to it. For some reason, I don't remember. I remember the character.
Yeah, the original film is again, that's on YouTube, and I think the TV series are on there as well, because they did 2 seasons. Yeah, they did 2 seasons of the TV series before it got cancelled, and yeah, they still managed to keep the same style, but it was very sort of Americanized.
So cleaner.
Oh, no.
A little bit. Yeah.
Bring on the fog.
Any more? I know John Carpenter probably.
Oh God, yeah, we missed him. Oh no,
you can't miss.
I'm gonna have to go and whip myself or something. How can I miss him? Yeah, The Fog.
Oh yeah, of course, The Fog.
The back alley scenes out of Big Trouble in Little China.
Escape from New York, probably. Yeah, of course.
Absolutely.
I love that one.
Yeah, I thought Miguel was taller. Let's see, there was the vampire one. What was the name? Prince of Darkness.
Yeah,
Prince of Darkness was brilliant with the flashing static on the TV screens and things like that. That was fantastic, that film. Elements of Hellraiser, maybe. I don't know. Yeah. So many. I've actually lost count of the things that have influenced me into, you know, various different things. And you have things like the you know, the way sanctions operators dress, very much taken from things like some of the computer games where they've got these huge sets of body armor and stuff like that, over the top body armor. You know, that's very much inspired by things like maybe Gears of War, Halo, but also have you seen some of the riot police nowadays?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Terrifying. Terrifying. You know, you get, you know, there's no such thing. I don't know if in Portugal you ever had the idea of the friendly neighborhood police officer. But when I was a kid, we did. You know, you had the, you know, your little old police officer on his push bike going along. You know, scariest thing about with him was like a notebook and a pen. You know, in case he took your details out. You know, but nowadays there's pepper spray and a taser and guns.
Yeah, and those shields. So ones go with the shields and the other ones go behind.
Yeah. I mean, some of the ones like the Indonesian ones, and they've got these. The helmets look like Iron Man. They look like stormtroopers from, you know, Star Wars, but you know, terrifying.
Yeah, I don't know if they're terrifying for some people. I think they're scary. Yeah, at least I remember so long ago when I still used to go out at night, that there are some areas here in Lisbon, the bars, so they used to have some of those just in case there was any trouble. So you had a van and a lot of guys from the intervention corps, and yeah, it was scary. It was like, oh, what they're doing here, what is going to happen? Yeah,
intervention corps. Good grief, that sounds scary. That should be a company in Sanctions, shouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be a good name. Yeah,
join intervention corps. You know, it's like that'd be awesome. You know, you like private army. That, you know, it's like, oh, I like that. Thank you, Sylvia. I'm stealing that one.
Yeah, you can.
Judge Red.
Thank you, Portugal.
Yeah.
You mentioned Judge Red.
Yeah, we mentioned Judge Red.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And all
he has bad memory.
All the other characters from that. How it's called? The other ones.
2000 AD.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, see, yeah, it may be a little bit of ABC Warriors, and you know, a bit of, oh yeah, early Nemesis the Warlock, but not Nemesis himself. More the human side of things, Torquemada, where it's so far into the future that humans are like just totally weird. But you know, the way I see it is the concept of singularity, where technology is growing so fast. Yeah, I thought, you know, later on in the 21st century, it's a bit scary. You know, it's just one step away. You know, and it really is. You know, I'm still using my mobile phone is about 5 years old, and yeah, I'm looking at stuff on TV, you know, in shops, and I'm thinking, what the hell? You know, it's like, this thing's smarter than I am. You know.
Yeah, and some things. Why do you want a washing machine that is smart, intelligent, or a fridge? No, I don't want my fridge to be intelligent. I just want it to keep the food cool.
Yeah, I don't want my fridge to say you're getting too fat.
Exactly. You shouldn't eat that, you fat bitch.
So put the cake down, Liam. Put the cake down. You know, and again, that would be another question that comes about in Sanctions, which are, you know, very subtle things that I've been putting in there, which is, if a piece of technology is intelligent, what gives you the right to smash it with a hammer because your phone is telling you off? If your phone is telling you off and you smash it, does it have rights?
In the Sanctions world, it's a live right, because the computer there is a live thing.
Absolutely. It's just recently come into being passed in the UK that lobsters, octopi, and squid have been regarded as being sentient. Which now brings about the question, do you have a right to eat it?
I think the worst part about lobster is that it's alive when it's cooked. I don't eat something that is
Absolutely,
alive
yeah.
when it's cooked.
That's it. That's what part of the
Yeah.
the laws are going to be, is to actually change. Whilst we have human rights, they're going to have to start introducing things like sentient rights, which means that if you're going to go and try and eat a lobster or a squid or whatever, you've got to think about its rights in relation to feeling pain, etc., etc. And that's what I was that's what I was writing into Sanctions way before this, which is, if you've got a genetically engineered robot or item in your house, and you beat it or whatever, does it have rights? Very much the same as the question I had, a lot of people brought up, and what Ridley Scott brought up with Blade Runner. So just because it's a robot who's grown, is it still a robot? And do androids dream of electric sheep?
Yes.
That is these are questions that we need to ask ourselves about the future, and that's what I've put in there. Sounds a bit prophetic, and it's like, ooh. But that's all sort of things that I was trying to imply with it.
Let's go some years behind. When did you start role playing?
I'm a bit too old. Pardon?
When did you start role playing, and what got you into role playing games?
See. I was born in 1972, so let's see. I was 12. I was 12 when I first started reading The Hobbit at school, and about 1983, 1984, the first fighting fantasy books came out. So I started off with those. I missed the Warlock of Firetop Mountain, and I was collecting from Citadel of Chaos.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I had that one.
Well, I also
creature.
I also started with fighting fantasy. Well, it wasn't called fighting fantasy here, but
yes, it was called.
Yeah,
it was.
I don't even remember what.
I can tell you what was called and translated. Fantastic Adventures.
Yes.
Oh, cool.
It would be that the Portuguese name.
I had a few of the books, and I went on holiday with my family, and there was a local bookshop in this little village that we were staying at, and I went in there to see if they had any more. And my father pointed out this other book, and he said, "These are exactly the same, aren't they?" And it was the Corgi edition of Tunnels and Trolls. And we bought about 3 of the solo adventure books, and I started to learn them and play them. And he also bought me the main core rulebook, the red cover one, and that blew me away. I didn't realize that you could play this as a group. So I started off with Tunnels and Trolls. Oddly, after that, I got the Fighting Fantasy introductory game, which was good. I mean, I'm glad they came up with Advanced Fighting Fantasy. I never, ever, ever owned Dungeons and Dragons.
I did.
I've never owned a copy. I played Basic once, and I actually played Advanced Dungeons and Dragons twice before, and then I played Basic afterwards, and I actually like the Basic one more. You can tell by the games that I write. I prefer to simplify things and have the storyline rather than the rules and the mechanics. The concept of I think I played an assassin jester or something in the AD&D. I was just like, what on earth is this? It was just crazy. And so after that, it kind of snowballed. I've had very few fantasy games. I think I actually still, I only own one fantasy game, and that's actually Conan. But that's because, you know, I'm a Robert E. Howard freak. I you know, the concept of Conan.
Which Conan, by the way?
I think it's the pocket-sized one. I can't remember who made it. It's the D20 one.
They're probably going to be another one, because I think someone told us, I can't remember who, that
Modifius had lost the rights.
Probably they gave them away then.
Yeah, they did.
So,
there's also going to be another one. Well, not Conan, but there's certainly going to be another barbarian one because I'm writing it. So,
yeah.
It's going to be. It's going to have magic in it, but it's going to be, the magic is going to be very much more like it was in the movies, where you want to cast a spell, it's going to have a cost. So, okay, you want to bring Conan back to life? Okay, fine.
Someone else is going to die.
Yeah, someone's either going to die or something bad's going to happen. Yeah, it's going to be a bit like that, mixed with sort of Michael Moorcock, the idea of chaos and things like that. But it's definitely going to be loincloths, chainmail bikinis, big swords and axes, things like that.
Problematic now.
That's another reason to bring it.
Offensive and problematic.
Oh.
So you didn't play much fantasy, but what did you play then? Science fiction?
No, I did. I did.
Oh, yeah.
I used to play a lot of fantasy.
Just not AD&D or D&D?
Just not D&D. No TSR, nothing like that. Runequest, I only ever played that. I played that so that I could annoy the GM, who basically said that he needed a player, but he didn't want anybody to play a duck. So I turned it on his head and I said, I will play a duck. I will fill the table, but I will play a duck. I played Tunnels and Trolls, and I played a lot of Dragon Warriors, which was like the British equivalent of Dungeons and Dragons, really. They produced it as paperback books. In the last few years, they produced it as a deluxe version, which is very good. But I played that a lot. But science fiction, I've never really felt comfortable with fantasy and the casting of spells and things like that. I've very much been a near future and science fiction fan. I loved science fiction more than I did that side of things.
In terms of role-playing games, which were in that genre, what were your choices? Cyberpunk 2020, maybe? Not really.
Yeah, I did actually have that.
Not Shadowrun, I think.
I liked a lot of the Palladium.
Palladium.
I liked a lot of Palladium, but we streamlined it a lot.
Yeah, it's super. There are a lot of rules, right?
There was, but we just streamlined the hell out of it. It's like we've always taken, my friends and I, we always took that one rule. This is just a guideline. So you take it, go, that's a great idea. Right, throw those rules away. Right, you can use that. So essentially, we were playing things like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, but using fighting fantasy, skill, stamina, and luck. Why not? It worked, and I successfully played a monk porcupine for about 2 years, I think. So things like that, a little bit of cyberpunk, but because when I was growing up, my pocket it shows my age. When I was a teenager, my pocket money was very small. I mean, if I was to even attempt to go out and buy the red box, it was £10. I would have to save up for weeks and have to do a lot of odd jobs in order to get that. So I used to buy a lot of the smaller games. I used to buy, I've always been an indie fan, not just because I like supporting indie creators, but because it was all I could afford. I then started to fall in love with it. And it's been that way ever since. You know, I watch a lot of indie films and a lot of terrible B movies on films that are made by the Asylum. You know they're doing it for the money, but they've got no budget, and you know it's like you've got to be grateful for anybody that comes up with the idea for a Sharknado. You know, things like that. I love you know, low budget, independent, creative ideas, and it originally stemmed from the fact that I never had any money to afford anything really expensive. But you know, I was buying these small, little, tiny games.
But there weren't many independent games in the 90s, right? Or were there?
There were.
Well, they didn't reach Portugal because only the big companies were being so. Faza and the TSR and well, those.
So you had Battle
Chaosium and those things. The stores had big shelves, but not many books.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, we did have them. Northampton, where I live at the time, had a great games shop there. And it was like a department store where they sold furniture and they had a toy section. But the guy who was the manager of the toy section was a role player. So he talked the company into having a role-playing section. And he managed to get hold of these wonderful little games and, you know, that nobody had ever heard of. And you know, I had piles of them. It was like little tiny books and booklets and things like that I'd, you know, buy for £1, £2 and things like that.
Mm-hmm. So you don't remember the names? Not particularly famous.
I mean, I'm 50. You know, it's 35 years ago. Let's see. There was one, Robot Madness. There was a game that was very similar to GURPS in that it was like a system, like a settingless game. Mm-hmm. That was created by a bunch of guys in Ireland called Stocks Light, I think it was called. I've only ever found one reference to it on the internet. Tons. There were loads and loads of these.
So games. Probably they were British, right?
Some of them were, but I mean, we had other things like the original game of Fudge, the Fudge game, which came in a little bag with tiny little dice in it. You know, games like that we had at the time, and yeah, I used to collect them all. Whilst it was by R. Talsorian, I was a great fan of I don't know why, Teenagers from Outer Space. I don't know what, I liked it.
Teenagers from Outer Space. That's a what? Who published it? Oh yeah.
Yeah. But I don't know.
Oh yeah, I know what it is. Yeah, I know what it is. It's a bit strange, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of.
But I suppose that suited me really. I'm a bit strange myself. You go, self-depreciation at its best. You can't really.
So when did you start thinking about writing your own? Well, not writing. Of course, that's the first thing.
You can say writing. When did I first?
Probably publishing, not writing, because
publishing was only about 2 or 3 years ago.
Oh, okay. Well, then it's a recent thing. Okay, so let's go back to my first question. When did you think?
When did I first start?
Should I write something?
Right. Okay. So that would have been about 6 months after my father bought me Tunnels and Trolls. When I got to school, when I got back from the holiday, it was weird. We had a great English teacher at my school, who, God bless her, Mrs. Harris. She was brilliant. She used to encourage people to go into a classroom at lunchtime, play chess, play board games, be creative that way. And my friends and I would go into her class and we you know, do these turn the page games. And I went, have you seen this? And you know, Tunnels and Trolls, and we tried to play it, but we only had lunch hours at school, so we needed something to do. So Miss Harris, her name was, she said, why don't you write one? So we did. And before you know it, we had a group of people that were playing these games at school, and we were typing them out on a manual typewriter, hand drawing the artwork onto these little booklets, photocopying them and giving them to each other. So essentially I've written lots of games since the age of about 12, 13, 14.
And did you play them?
Pardon?
Did you play those games?
Yeah. Oh yeah. We Skate or Die, which was the skateboarding teenage angst game, all about a near future totalitarian UK where skateboarding had been banned, and crazy ideas. A friend of mine, he wrote one all about a world where there were no humans and everybody was robots, but you had to design your robot. You actually had to draw your robot, and you had one. You could either have tracks or legs and things like that, and they were all really simple games, like 3 stats and things like that. And yeah, a lot of them we played. Yeah, they were great games.
By what you were telling, there were several people playing role-playing games at the time in that school, in their class. Was that popular?
Oh no. Oh no.
And popular.
Oh, no. We were in a boys' school. Oh my word. No, we were no. Oh no. I mean, you might as well have just painted a target on us. No, you can imagine. It's like if you weren't playing rugby, if you weren't playing hockey, if you weren't playing football, then there was something wrong with you. And especially at a boys' school, I mean, you were definitely borderline homosexual if you even thought about reading a book. Oh my word. It's like, especially when they started saying in curriculum, oh, we're going to study Romeo and Juliet. Oh God almighty, can you imagine the hell we went through? We went through absolute hell.
Here it wasn't.
You weren't in a boys' school, but
no, but we probably you wouldn't be made fun of because nobody knew what role-playing games were. People were made fun of for playing, I don't know, video games, for example, the nerds, but not role-playing games. Nobody knew what was that, so just books.
I mean, for us, it was the mid to late 80s. So it's like, especially at a boys' school, it was like the English equivalent of what the American teen dramas where you see, like you had the jocks and the nerds and the geeks and the weird. It's just like, but it was all guys. It's like leave me alone. I think that's what actually created me now. It's like it got to the point where I was actually refusing to play sports. It's like, and I hate football now. I absolutely loathe it. It's like it got to the point where it's like, if you want the football, here, have the bloody football. You stick it in your net. I don't care.
We still have. I think we still have it here. We still have that idea. If you're a guy that likes football, there's something wrong with you.
I never liked football.
Yeah, and it's one of the things. Both of you guys know from the Red Room and various other Facebook forums. This entire politics, it's like infighting in a minority hobby like ours. What on earth are people doing? Oh, you can't do that because you're going to offend so-and-so, and you're going to do this because you're be offended by this. Well, you try being a role player in the 1980s in a boys' school. You have nothing to be offended by. We should all just get along together, roll a few dice, and have a laugh. That's what it's about. I'm being triggered by you because you said this. Really? Like James Desborough said, you can't get a more safe environment than sitting around a table, apart from if you drop a D4 on the floor and you actually tread on it.
Well, actually, once
really nasty.
During a game session, one of the players tried to strangle the game master, but well, it all ended all right.
Well, it depends.
Well, the table fell down, but
was the game master being a dick? You know, it's like
probably. Yeah. I'll ask him. Yeah. He's still playing.
Talking of it, I mean, there are times where I can see people getting offended. I mean, there was a great movie. Have you ever seen Unicorn City?
No.
If you can, get hold of that movie, because there's a GM in it that you just go, okay, yeah, that guy's an absolute penis. He needs killing, you know. But all this politics nowadays, I just can't cope with it. I mean, there are words and things like there are certain situations that I kind of skirt around in Sanctions, but nothing should be off limits. I mean, if you want to write a horror game, how can you write a horror game without any horror?
Yes.
Yes. Well, you can, because they are doing it.
Here's my X card. Really? You know, don't play it. Yep. You know, I want to play something that's different. I don't want to be an elf or an orc or this, that, or the other. I want to play something edgy, but I don't want to. Could you please make sure there's no people in there who are going to kill me? I don't want giant spiders. The color lilac really upsets me. And oh yeah, I'm a bit afraid of water.
The worst thing is that they don't just create their own games and stay there. No, they really want. They create their own games, but then they want to play the popular.
They want to ruin the popular games.
Yeah, and to ruin the popular games.
All of these things, like the safety card.
Yeah.
Do you want to make a timeout?
And then everybody talks about
my narrative, and it's not. You know, if you're one per, I can understand. If you've got an entire table of people and the GM comes up with a scenario or a situation which is clearly, and I can't even use the words now in case, you know, YouTube will go, hell's tits, he's said that, and it closes down your channel. But, I mean, imagine a DM says, oh, and this happens, the entire table just get up and punch him in the face. That's a different matter. But if you're going to get really antsy about it, oh, really?
Yeah, they're kind of ruining certain type of games, mature games. It can't be played.
We lost a player because of that, but it wasn't during a game. We were just talking about playing, so it was better.
Don't even get
that
happened down the route of, I mean, we have a thing in the UK, I mean, this entire social justice warrior, rewriting history.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, this didn't happen. Of course it bloody happened.
They want to start doing the same here with the Portuguese.
It always comes late, but it.
The Portuguese expansion, like I don't know how to say it in English.
Yeah.
Discoveries, I think.
The discoveries, yes. So they want to take that out because it's problematic and blah, blah, blah. They want to take that out of history books. I don't remember I ever had a teacher that talked about the discoveries in a way, because what they said, we went there, we discovered this place. We brought a lot of gold and spice, and then we gave it all to the English because we needed wool and we needed grain. So
clothes
basically,
and
all that. Clothes and food. So we are stupid.
A few years ago, a friend of mine who does World War II reenactment, he plays British commandos and he shows off all this very accurate equipment, this and the other. There was a group of people who approached the organizers of these big events where you had the Germans fighting the English and the Americans, and said, we're offended. What by?
Everything.
The Germans. And so they had to introduce rules where You could have a Second World War reenactment, but you couldn't have the Germans there, and you couldn't show a swastika. What the fuck?
So they are fighting.
Exactly.
Shadows.
Exactly. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, people become terrified. I mean, from our point of view, Miguel, and so if we're writing a game, it's like, what do I write?
Especially if you want to write something edgier.
I don't want to upset you. I can't upset them.
The only thing we can do is screw them.
Exactly.
I'll write what I want.
Exactly.
Cancel me.
It's like, I can't make a game too minimalist because they tell all these people who like to say, I mean, what's this word crunch, mechanics and all this. Oh, I'm upsetting them because they want more rules. And oh, please. Let's all just get along.
And there were, it's interesting now that the guys were doing all the canceling and the
cancel culture thing,
they are supposedly the leftists, but long time ago,
the good guys.
I don't know what's left and what's right anymore. I don't care.
There was a time when the right was the ones with the censoring, including in the role-playing game industry, the Satanic Panic and all those things. The religious people.
I remember that. I remember that.
Those were the offended ones back then. But
I remember when the Satanic Panic thing was kicking off, and Tom Hanks was in the movie Monsters and Mazes, where he plays. It's based effectively on a true story about this kid who goes completely off his mind and disappears, and the detectives and people started blaming role-playing games. I remember it well. It was ridiculous. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's now. I remember they more recently, right when there's a shooting in a school in the US, they started blaming computer games.
Oh, absolutely.
There was one that was Mass Effect. The guy was playing Mass Effect. Oh, Mass Effect is evil.
Handguns were banned from civilian ownership in the UK many years ago, following a shooting here, and the media tried to blame violent videos.
If you play a video, you'll get solve your anger that way. It's less likely that you want to go and kill people.
I mean, you should see me when I'm trying to go shopping. I want to kill people all the time. Doesn't mean I'm going to.
Yeah.
No, that's a good thing. That's a good thing that you don't have guns here in Portugal. Because sometimes you would shoot your neighbor.
Yeah, that might happen. Probably not, because when you have the gun there,
you should try driving in Spain. Yeah, it'd be even worse. I mean,
I never drive in Spain, but I was.
Lived in Spain, right?
I did for a couple of years.
Where did you live, right? Where were you living? In which city or?
No, I lived down near Torrevieja, down in sort of Alicante area. But we lived in various little villages, and
that's in the south, right? Yes.
Yeah. So there was quite a few expats around, and yeah. Don't get me started.
Okay. I don't know. Something else, or you have exhausted
the start about experts.
Well, let's see. We've gone through sanctions. We've gone through the creation of sanctions of the world. What I'm doing next. We touched on politics. Social justice warriors are idiots.
We complained about all the right subjects and the wrong subjects also.
Absolutely.
What can't we say? What can we say? And
I just don't care. I just don't care. I mean, if people get essentially, if people get upset by my game, then thank you for buying it. You're not having your money back.
By the way, have someone complained?
Oh, I would actually put it up as it's like as a testimonial on my page. Yeah, it's like I was upset by Liam's game Sanctions because it did this. Thank you. You got upset by it. That's what I'm aiming for. I'm hoping to touch a nerve.
You don't use
people...
Do you use Twitter?
Pardon? Oh, do I use Twitter? No.
Yeah. Well, it's a good thing that you don't. It probably
a
lot of upset people there.
Oh, really?
Triggered people, yeah.
They are looking for.
I'm not touching that.
No, don't go there.
Don't waste your time there.
Yeah,
well, I'm everywhere now. I can't avoid it.
Earlier about left and right and things like that. I don't care if people are left or right. I mean, I've known people who are socialists who are absolute idiots. And I've met people who are very conservative and they're complete dicks. What I've learned many, many years ago, that if you're going to get involved in politics and you want to become a politician, you're a dick.
Yeah.
Because you're not doing it for the people. You never have done it for the people. You're doing it because you want a little bit of fame. And for those 4 or 5 years or whatever you're in power for, you're getting the money. The only person I ever have really had any time for is that young girl up in Norway. It was Greta Thunberg. You know, the very sort of save the planet. But even then, she kind of irritates me on the ground. It's like, yeah, okay, well, you've said your bit. Come on.
Yeah,
you know.
yeah. And the part that I thought about Greta was that everybody, oh, she's telling that you need to save the planet. Oh, and the little girl, yes, but don't you know, people have been saying that for decades.
Yeah,
you are listening because it's a young
10
girl.
10 years ago, they were saying that on Lazy Town,
yes.
and she had pink hair, so, you know.
And Al Gore also said it, but he wasn't a cute little girl.
Yeah.
So nobody listened.
Well, he probably wore a dress, but, you know, hey, that's up to him.
He wasn't cute, even with the dress. Probably.
Right.
He may be cuter with a dress.
You know,
I don't know.
You know, I'm pleasantly agnostic. I'm neither left, I'm neither right. If I like a person, I like a person. And if somebody gets upset by my work, it upsets them.
No, it's probably
at least I know, you know, it's made them unsettled.
Something like this is supposed to upset people, right? It's a body horror game. It can't not upset people. If it's not upsetting,
really
it's not doing the work.
If you're a really disturbed person like us.
Yeah, okay.
I don't know. I mean, am I disturbed?
I am disturbed. Sometimes I think that upsetting things are funny. They make me laugh. But
I don't know. You've known me a little while now.
No, I don't. I wouldn't consider you disturbed.
I don't think so.
Maybe disturbing.
So. Maybe I'm not trying hard enough.
But maybe you are. We don't know.
Yes, exactly.
We don't know enough.
I'm something really sick now, aren't I?
Yeah, we probably have to. You'll have to do.
Oh, that was an idea. That was an idea for a game.
We'll have to write another game. Yeah, another game.
Listen,
one more upsetting.
Idea for a game. Based on all this woke culture, I had this great idea. Know all this current thing about orcs are racist, and elves are all elitist, and you know, blah 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 blah. Well, all of these fantasy games where they have half elves and they have half orcs. Have you ever read the descriptions?
No, not really.
An elf fell in love with a lowly mortal man, blah, 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 blah. And it was a beauteous love and this, that, and the other. And they go, the half orc. Well, you know what happened there?
Yeah, then nobody ever tells what happened there. It's like...
Because they're violent. We know what's happened there. Well, why is it in all of these fantasy games, you only get the half elf, you only get the half orc? What about a game called Breed or the half breed?
Yeah.
Where you randomly choose tables to see what your half breed is. You're not half human and half orc. You could be elf orc or a dwarf orc.
Yeah, and you don't have half dwarfs. You never have half dwarfs.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Yeah.
It's ugly.
It's not. They can't imagine what a half dwarf. How tall would a half dwarf be? Nobody knows.
It depends.
I mean, that would be totally screwed up. Yeah. Okay, I'll give you that one. Well, I mean, why? It's irritating me. I mean, it's like half elf, half orc.
But I remember there was a WoW, I don't know if it was a role-playing game or just a story for Fluff. That was half orc and half elf had a baby. That was the story.
Ooh,
yeah, I think it's
okay.
Do you remember that?
I can imagine that would have been the baby would have come out C-section. I should imagine that.
Probably the baby's a human,
Yeah.
right? What part is he?
Oh God. Yeah, I mean, these ideas and more. I mean, I have so many ideas that I just think, you know, even if I publish, I'll probably have to go to Lulu and just print off one copy, and it's like, because nobody would ever get it. They would never understand either the irony, the sarcasm, or the fact that I just don't care.
Oh, but publishing everything, you'd have to do the layout and the art and all that. So it's probably.
Oh no,
it would take too much time.
I'd have to use a purple crayon.
Oh yeah, okay. Like that is probably easier, quicker.
Yes.
Well,
okay, so
I think it's time to go.
Okay, thank you very much, guys. It's been great talking to you.
Thank you.
Really sorry about the dogs and, you know, notes being passed and things like that.
No problem.
Great
That's
speaking
life.
to you. Yeah.
It happens. Well, it's not live TV, but okay.
Yes, exactly.
It happens anyway.
It does.
This way it's a reality show.
Absolutely.
Oh, and we can show that game designers, role-playing game designers, have lives.
And dogs.
Yes, and dogs. They're not
And
just they're not living in their mother's basement.
No, yeah.
Oh no.
That's not the basement.
Not. Oh, I wish.
Okay then, Liam, thank you for coming, and come back to talk about probably movies. Why not? We should talk about movies.
Absolutely. We need to get a video night together. Mate, I'm gonna work out. I know a few people who have got a Facebook group, and that's what they do. They had and they put a link to a YouTube video onto the page, and then people, you know, sort of comment on it and things like that.
Yeah.
So maybe we could do that.
Okay.
Yeah, especially because we're on the same time zone. So that helps.
Fantastic. So you get the popcorn, you get the drinks, and I'll just bring madness.
Okay.
Sure. Okay.
It's the deal.
Okay, guys.
Have a nice weekend.
Nice seeing you.
Okay. Bye.
Have something to eat. Bye.
Bye.